The title of my talk is Reducing Overhead with MariaDB Catalogs. And during this talk, I'd like to discuss a typical challenge that we as sysadmins are currently facing. First of all, a few things about myself. My name is Christian. I'm 37 years old. In my free time, I'm a hobbyist photographer. I play the guitar, and I'm especially interested in reptiles. My professional career started 11 years ago when I joined the database team at Ionos. And in my current job position, I'm technical responsible for the whole database platform. And we operate MySQL, MariaDB, and PostgreSQL, both for internal customers and also external customers. In total, we operate a little over 10,000 Linux servers running around about 4.6 million databases on them. A few words about Ionos as a company. We maintain contracts with 6 million clients worldwide. We have around about 4,000 employees in 35 locations. And in total, we run 100,000 servers in our 10 data centers and host a total of 22 million domains. The product portfolio ranges from domain and SSL products over email and collaboration tools, website builders, the classical web hosting, and server and cloud products. Now let's define the scope a little bit of my talk. First about the scope, then I'm giving you some glossary to avoid confusions. I'll present you the challenge that we are currently facing and some solutions that we did in the past already, and then say a few words on how catalogs can support us here and give us a new tool in our toolbox. In the end, I'll draw a conclusion, and then hopefully there will be some time left for questions. I'm a little bit on the tight schedule, but we'll make this work somehow. I'm basically talking about the database platform in general. I'm not too much differentiating between internal and customer-facing databases because essentially they share the same platform. Everything is at least redundant in 2 data centers. We use asynchronous replication, so the overall basic setup of the systems is very easy. And this way it allows us to run a lot of database instances with only very few people. We are a long-term user of MariaDB already. We started with MariaDB 5.5 years ago. And since then, almost every version was or is still in production in our platform. The platform itself is highly standardized and automated. This also supports us a lot when we are operating such large fleets of database servers. I will be talking a lot about servers and instances, and just to give you some glossary, when I'm talking about a server, I'm talking about either physical or virtual hardware, and instances are right in the operating system running MariaDB processes. Back in the days, the life were quite easy. We had one server running one single database instance, and it's quite easy to maintain. There's not a lot of overhead, a little bit for the operating system, but basically all resources of the server are available for the database. Now comes the challenge. The servers are getting larger and larger, more resources are available, but workloads do not necessarily grow. So the challenge itself is how can we still use those resources efficiently? And spoiler alert, of course, we somehow need to increase the density. It's not so much of an issue as long as the growth of the server is like 2 times the resources or so. As sysadmin, you will always find some excuses why a little bit more of resources could be beneficial. Maybe there's still some peak load that you want to optimize, or there's a slight chance that the database is still suffering from resource shortage on the systems. But systems grow and grow. So 4 times the year, okay, maybe it's not what it should be. We can probably still argue why the server should be as large, but yeah, n times the size of the original server. Yeah, this is not going to be approved by the management, obviously, so we have to do something about it. All resources are very expensive, not only CPU and memory, but also especially data center resources. It's quite easy to double the memory of a server, but it's not so easy to double the rack space in the facility. So the key point is we have to use our resources quite efficiently. It could be as easy as that. Just put more databases on the system. In the same instance, there's a pro side. This is quite easy. You don't need to do some fancy things, just add more databases or consolidate existing ones. It's still very efficient because only one database instance is consuming the resources of a server. But there are also some downsides. We really like to keep our database instances small, to have good backup times and restore times. It's easy to do maintenance. You don't have to coordinate with so many people. So the larger the database instance gets, the harder it gets to manage. Also, when you're trying to consolidate stuff, you also need to be aware that you might run into conflicts. For example, there were times when each application was running on a JBoss and the application user that was used was JBoss. And so you have to avoid that you have different users with the same username accessing databases where they shouldn't. So it would be really nice if we could just split the server logically, and luckily virtualization has us covered here. So with virtualization, it's actually quite easy to slice the server in exactly the size, small sized pieces that we need. It's even easier than managing hardware directly because you don't have to take care of hardware failures and so on. Virtualization often provides some nice APIs to maintain the stuff. And hypervisors provide features like high availability or live migrations. So all good. The negative side of virtualization is obviously that they add a lot of overhead to the system. So you have to take care of some abstractions like virt.io block, virt.io SCSI, hardware emulation, and so on. And everything I said before about how easy it is only true as long as there's a different team specializing on hypervisor management and you are only a customer of the VM and don't need to run the hypervisor platform itself, because there's quite some complexity in it. And yeah. On the other hand, if you want to skip all the hardware abstraction stuff and virtualization, we can also just run multiple database instances directly on a server. You could distinguish between the instances either by port or by bind address. In theory, also both. On the positive side, direct hardware access is more or less the same. Like if there's only one database instance, there are no abstraction levels, but we still have some overhead. Like Monty also already said, you have n times the buffer pool, so you fragment the memory that you have on the system. Also, there could be some security issues with it, because if you manage to get out of one database, you basically also have access to all the other database instances. But this is also nothing special. It's also the same when only one single instance is running. Oh, can this be read? Yeah, I think so. Here I just screenshotted one of our multi-instance test setups. This time it's running actually a multi-instance by port. So there are 3 ports. Here in the PS output, you see that there are 3 MariaDB instances running on each separate port. And yeah, you will also see some basic information like instance name, port, throughput, size, and so on.
I'm happy to see you running 11.4 here. That's the first time I see that outside of the company.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. It was just the latest version available, so.
And that's totally correct.
Yeah. Yeah, running multiple instances by port is actually quite easy. But what is not so easy is the migration phase from dedicated server to a multi-instance system, because the port needs to be changed, and so it's not exactly transparent to the customer. On the other hand, you could also run multi-instances with different bind addresses. Here the information is basically the same. You also have a database hostname that is resolved from the IP address in the overview, but the rest is more or less the same. The important part here is that you see the port is always the same. So what you can do now is just take a database that is already running somewhere, somehow migrate the data to the multi-instance system, shut down the old one, announce the IP on the new system, and the database is migrated. Here in the MySQL output, it's not good seeable from the back. You see that there's the bind address different, but this also has limitations because the bind address can either be only one single IP address, all IP addresses available on the system, or none. So now, what can catalogs do? Catalogs basically combine the positive features from having a single instance and multiple instances on a single system. There's one database instance and catalogs that could represent one of our instances. You have the same direct hardware access like if there was only one instance on the system, and obviously because there is only one, by splitting those instances into different catalogs, you can avoid the conflicts that can happen from a single instance, and you could also just use it to hide system users, for example. Yeah. On the big negative side, there's only one MariaDB process running, and if one catalog, for example, manages to crash the system, it's gone for all the others as well. But yeah, Monty, you have to keep it stable. I also added the catalog features to our system environment already. This time we see the 3 actual instances, which are only catalogs. And additionally, the dev catalog you already saw. The big side here is now you see only one single MariaDB process. And you can iterate over the catalogs as already seen the last presentation here with -- catalog, for example. A little bit in the future, it will also be possible to directly connect to a catalog using IP with the -- connect IP flag for the client for the server configuration. And this will allow us to do some cool data migrations from existing servers to a catalog. And the migration can be really transparent because the IP address remains the same, the port remains the same, so the customer will not notice anything apart from a short downtime. A little bit in the future, and maybe also some wishlist item. As I said already earlier, we don't use single servers. We usually use replicated servers across multiple data centers. So it would be cool if catalogs could also do replication. Not sure if this is even possible, but this way
It's planned.
it's planned already.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the plan, so it will do eventually. And initially, you can definitely replicate everything to everything,
Yep.
but I want to be able to do exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's so we have Christian Nielsen here, who is very awake and taking notes.
Okay, yeah, well. So, and with individual replication and a bunch of servers that are running with catalog mode enabled, you could build something like a MariaDB fabric. The only thing that you would need for that is some additional orchestration and maybe management, but maybe this could be added to Maxskill, for example, or something different. And yeah, just
So just so you know, replicating in it should be relatively easy because we have already multi-server replication in.
Yep.
Replication just one catalog out is a little bit more problematic because if that you have to go through the log and only taking those entries. But it's possible. And with easy, I mean that's it. About a week or much less. So it's not a hard job. So it will be probably the first version. You hope. At least I'm trying to get it there.
sounds good. Yeah, I'm already almost at the end of my talk, so it's time to draw a conclusion. Will catalogs replace our whole infrastructure? And I guess certainly not, except for all this multi-instance stuff that we are currently running. It's just easier to have it in a single catalog instance. If there's nothing that speaks against it, which I currently don't know, is maybe we can enable it on all systems, more or less just in case, as long as there's nothing that speaks against it. And we have already some use cases identified, some for our internal databases. A lot of them are actually in the shared hosting environment and obviously also in our DBaaS offerings in the cloud. Yeah, that would be it. So are there some questions? Yeah.
What kind of, how much more density do you expect on a given server using this method versus the VM method or versus
That's really hard to tell. That depends strongly on the workload that is to be expected. For the shared hosting environment, the additional gains would not be so much because we usually do single databases, single users, so we can really pack the system densely. For our internal databases, it can be something like 4:1, 5:1, I would say.
The MariaDB Foundation is the global contact point for collaboration on MariaDB server. Our work is made possible thanks to the support of our sponsors.